intern at Microsoft Research, but he's actually Michigonian most of the time.
Yeah.
You can figure out your own affiliation. We'll work on that.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for coming to my talk. So my name is Tien Nguyen, and I present a project with the results of my internship research at Microsoft Research Redmond last summer with Dr. Iqbal and Dr. Ofek. We also collaborated with Dr. Nguyen from CMU. So meeting new people and making friends is an important part of everyday life. So pleasant interaction with friends help relieve stress and reduce the feeling of loneliness. We know that casual acquaintances or quick social ties can provide resources for various tasks like job hunting, information searching, or expanding one's social network. The first conversation with a new acquaintance is crucial for the establishment of the long-term relationship, especially when we're at CHI. So in the previous presentations, we heard a novel and interesting design concept for the context-aware social matching system. Now, I present interesting results about a system that help people strike a good conversation with strangers and help people establish possible long-term relationship. So let's look at the previous work. So previous work has proposed several solutions to support conversation between strangers, like Fishbone by Young, Table by Powell, encourage social interaction among coffee house patrons. So even in CHI 2011, we have a system called Pokken that help people exchange contact information. The most relevant here I want to emphasize is the work from McCarthy, which introduced the interactive displays to make it easy for a stranger to find a conversational topic. The display will suggest potential conversational topics to people when they approach it. But the topic suggestions were displayed publicly so everyone could see them, right? So since McCarthy works on public display, and we have seen the introduction of wearable personal display like the Google Glass, that led us wonder what if we display personalized conversational suggestions on people's private display. To answer that question, we built a system to deliver personal topic suggestions simply via Google Glass to people when they talk to a stranger. So it's how our system workflow. First, we collect personal information about users like LinkedIn profile, hobbies, or favorite places they love to travel. Then we also collect information to assess how comfortable they were with some topics when they talk to a stranger. Then the system classifies the collected information into some potential topics when you first met a stranger, like hobbies, jobs, schools, skills, etc. Then the system will generate the topic suggestion and personalize the topic suggestion to each individual and each pair by ranking the suggestion based on two things. First is the topic preference of each individual in the conversation, and second, the mutual interest and preference of both people involved in the conversation. Finally, the system delivers these topic suggestions to the users when they talk to a stranger. So this is the system overview. We got the database that store all of the personal information of the users. We got a server that handle the communication between the database and the classes. During the conversation, the classes frequently ask our server for topic suggestions, and the server will fetch the suggestion from the database to the class. So how our users saw the suggestions? So during the conversation with a stranger, our participants saw at most 3 suggestions, like in the figure here. We kept the suggestion short and concise so that the participant could understand the suggestion with minimal efforts. So how were the suggestions delivered? So as shown here, we simply deliver topic suggestion to the class. Each user will wearing when she or he talking with a stranger. In this way, we make sure that both of them did not know when their partner received the suggestion and what the suggestion were. So it's up to them to use the suggestion. Because the suggestions were personalized, user A and B in any pair received different suggestions at different times during the conversation. Right. So after we build the system, we tested it. So here is our research question. First, we ask, like, how do the suggestion affect people conversation experience? Like, are they helpful? And second, for the second research questions, the motivation is that most of us, including me, love meeting new people, but many of us are introverts and who find it hard to start a good conversation, or we're afraid to fail a conversation, even though we know that it's really worth it. Thus, we ask, like, what the effects of suggestions on the conversation experience for introverts and extroverts. And third, we ask, like, how did the use of suggestion affect conversation experience? Meaning, like, if you use more suggestion, if you take more suggestion, will your conversation quality improve or reduce? So our user study. So why one day I would love to, very interesting to study a system that have conference attendees like us here establish a good conversation. At this time, we wanted to focus on getting a lot of data from each conversation and each participant. Thus, we carry out a lab study where we pair people who did not know each other, gather data about them, monitor their conversations, and then survey them about the conversational experience. We set up a website for participants to sign up for a study. When they sign up for a study, we collected information about them, as mentioned before, like LinkedIn profile, hobbies, and travel places. We also administrated their personality. We assess their personality based on the big 5 personality traits. So after this sign-up step, we randomly pair participants but make sure that they did not know each other. Then participants were invited to come in for a lab experiment. They sat down, put on the Google Class with our system built in to reduce the effects of individual and the pair variations. We adopted within subject design with 2 15-minute conversation sections. One of the conversation sessions have suggestions, the other did not. So after each conversation section, participants fill out a questionnaire. A questionnaire measures participant reaction and experience after the conversation. So to address and isolate the expected order effects, we randomize the pair into suggestion first and suggestion second group. Suggestion first means that your user got the suggestion in the first session, and suggestion second means that user got the suggestion in the second session. So to be clear about that, here is the, some information about it. So in the suggestion first group, it consists of 18 out of 38 pairs. So these pairs did not receive any suggestion in the second session, but they do receive suggestion in the first session. The other group, suggestion second group, consists of 20 out of 38 pairs. So these pairs did not receive any suggestion in the first session, but got suggestion in the second session. So what we try to measure here, so our independent measures were the manipulations, where the participant received the suggestion, the personality of the participant. We also treat the number of suggestions taken as the independent measure for the third research question, which is that how did the use of suggestion affect conversation experience? So here is the dependent measure. We want to see where the suggestion can help to how the user perceive the usefulness of suggestions. How about the perceived conversation quality, the perceived closeness to the partner, and the knowledge about the partner after the conversation with suggestion. Our participants. So we ran a lab study with 80 participants, 53 males and 27 females, the age from 15 to 58 years old. All of our participants were fluent in English with various education background. So, results. So let me remind you our research questions. So first, we look at how do the suggestions affect people's conversation experience? Like, are they helpful? Does our algorithm work? So to answer that question, we look at how many suggestions were delivered to participants per session. we found that on an average, users receive 15 suggestions per session. Users use 3.46 suggestions per session. 3.46 is about 27% of suggested topics during the conversation. Now, since users adopted our suggestion, we wonder what these suggestions helpful to the users. So in terms of how useful the participant perceive the suggestions, on the Likert scale from 1 low, 7 high, the average response is 4.68. The response is significantly higher than neutral point 4. Thus, we see that the suggestion based on our algorithms were helpful to the participant. Now, after we learned that the suggestions were helpful, then we ask, when the suggestion really effective? To what extent the suggestion effective in the conversation? So to answer this question, we look at the perceived conversation quality, closeness to the partner, knowledge about partner in the first and second session. So here is the result for the conversational quality. Let me walk you through the figure. So the y-axis is the self-reported conversational quality on a 7-point scale, Likert scale. Red column represents participants who received the suggestion, and white column represents those who did not. So as shown in the first session, there was no difference in the conversation quality for participants who received the suggestion compared to those who did not. However, in the second session, we found that users who received the suggestion in the second session, they found that the conversation quality is much better than without suggestion. How about the closeness to the partner in the first session? The same here, the y-axis is the self-reported closeness to the partner on the 7-point scale. So as we can see, in the first sessions, there was no difference at all in the perceived closeness to the partner for participants who received the suggestion compared to those who did not. However, in the second session, we found that participants who received the suggestion reported feeling closer to their partner than those who did not. Next, knowledge about partner after the conversations, we see here is that for the first session, there's no difference between with and without suggestions. However, in the second sessions, participants who received the suggestion reported more knowledge than those who did not. So the result of the first research question demonstrates the positive effect of the conversation experience. Our second research question, we asked if the effects differ for introverts and extroverts. So here's our results. The x-axis is how introverted participants were. The higher the score, the more introverted the participant. We consider extroversion as the reverse of introversion. The lower the score, the more extroversion the participant. So let's focus on the introvert participant. So we look at the circle on the right. The red line means with suggestion, and the blue line means without suggestions. So as we can see, with suggestion is better than without suggestion for introverts. In contrast, for the extroverts, as in the circle area on the left, without suggestion is better than with suggestion for the extrovert. So far we reported the effects of showing suggestion to the participants. So now we want to report the effects of using the suggestion. So let's look at the first sessions. So this graph plots the conversation quality on the y-axis against the number of suggestions taken on the x-axis. We find that taking more suggestions reduced the conversation quality in the first sessions. However, interestingly, in the second session, using suggestion improved the conversation quality as shown by the blue line here. Okay, so let me go through the discussions. So we found that in the first session, suggestion did not help. Why? Then we asked our participants to comment, and then we found that suggestion in the first session really interrupted the natural ice cracking when participants met someone for the first time. Moreover, they reported that at that moment, it was very distracting to talk to someone and look at the suggestion in a Google class. However, suggestion helped them find a new conversational topic when they ran out of the ice-breaking topic in the second session. We also found that suggestion did not help extroverts. So the extrovert commented that suggestion was intrusive to their ability, intrusive and interfere with their ability to socialize. They don't like it at all. They say that they can't do it by themselves. All right, so our takeaway results is that personalized suggestions on the private display are helpful, but only at the right moments and for certain type of people. Here's the introvert. Design indication, this is my last slide, is that personalized suggestions are helpful in a conversation, but we learned that it should be tuned to the conversational flow. A suggestion should be less invasive to one-on-one suggestions, and we should also consider personality when building the conversation support system. I would like to thank our review, our participants, the Natural Interaction Group at Microsoft Research Redmond and Brooklands Research Lab for valuable feedback. Thank you, and I'm open to Q&A.
So I'm thinking about the work that Rich DeVol did as part of his dissertation work at the Media Lab in about 2002. He was doing wearable computing displays to help you remember people's names. And one of the things he noticed was that if you put the wrong name up, it still had a positive effect. If I put up Jennifer, and I'm looking at you, right, it still has a positive effect. And looking at your study, I kept wondering about your baseline. I kept wondering about the effect of wearing a Google Glass and what that actually does on having decent conversation to begin with, even if there's nothing on it. I wondered about whether the suggestions were personalized or what happened if we just said, look, everyone, you're all talking about Cookie Monster, right? Can you talk a little bit about those various baseline points?
So the in the presentation, the baseline is that when a session without suggestion compared to the same session with suggestions, so we only compare between the two things. We would love to have more baseline, but we ran out of the users, so we couldn't design for it. But this is your future work. To address your comment about putting the wrong names, we did play with one pair, is that we fit the wrong information to both of them, and we saw that it's really screw up their conversation because they look puzzled, and at the end they comment that we don't have very good conversation because we don't, the topic doesn't match to what we want to talk about, and we keep thinking what is going on. But we didn't report in the paper because we want to see the effect. Right.
Roel Vertigal, Queen's University. I remember a paper by Eric Paulus called The Familiar Stranger.
Yep.
And that was more of a design study, but he did stuff in the wild, and I was wondering if you could comment on the difference between doing something like this in the lab, which is a fairly artificial place for this kind of subtle interactions, versus doing this on like a morning commute on a bus or something. I realize it's hard to do because you need to have the data,
right.
But what kind of differences would you expect?
Well, so one thing that we expect in this setting is that when we invite people, when people put on Google Class, they kind of like got some idea of what's going on, so we instruct them like, also they got the some baseline, like we invite them to Microsoft Research, they may as well talking about things at Microsoft Research, so we instruct them, please stop don't talking about anything related to Microsoft Research or anything related to Google Class. However, on the bus, maybe introduce some more nuanced things like they know the environment, they know where they're heading, you know, they know the bus environment, so it may have already have some environment there for them to use. I hope I addressed your question.
Plus there's this sort of like continuance between stranger and familiar person. There's people that you see every day that you don't know, for example.
But like for some people, like introverts, they never want to talk, right? Because they see this familiar face, but they don't know whether they have the same interest or not, whether they can start a good conversation. What if I fail? So they worry and they just keep for themselves. So
maybe they don't want to talk.
Yeah, they really don't want to talk at all. You're right. So
but you can always look away. Thank you.
So we've got time for one more brief question. Those of you standing in the back, please come and sit down. Joe, you're looking a little uncomfortable. Find a nice chair, like get yourself comfy. Don't leave. I'm joking. So please come and sit down. We've got this one more question.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Leslie from the University of Nottingham. So I was just wondering if you could talk a bit more about how people use the suggestions. did they use them to ask a question of the other person, or did they use it to tell their own stories? And did it seem kind of natural to you when they did?
So let me rephrase your question. Your question is that how did they use the suggestion, right? So that's what we observed from the video feed that we got is that people use the suggestion in a various way. They can for some pair, they got a pause of silence because they ran out of topic, and then suddenly they see that, oh, Paris. So when people start, oh, have you ever been to Paris? So you see the Paris, and they started a question about Paris. The other, then when they talk about jogging, and then they see some mountain or hiking, then they try to bring that into the context that they are talking, you talk about jogging, and I see the hiking. But they didn't say, the person see the hiking said, did you jog on the mountain as well, when you're hiking or something like that? So that is how people use the suggestions.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.